is coming. Q is coming. Its name is Quetzalcoatl. Just call it Q. That's all you'll have time to say before it tears you apart. Q is coming.
All right, guys, we're here for a very special video. We're here to talk about a 1982 classic, of course, and we have Michele Kisner with us
Hey.
from Movie Sleuth. She's also a published critic and done a bunch of supplemental features and, notes and essays and stuff. How's it going, Michele?
It's going good. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, thanks for being here. And next up is our editor of Ultraviolet magazine, also a contributor to many commentaries and special features, and does a bunch of panels. I'm sure he knows some of these fellas and women in this movie. So how's it going, Art?
It's going quite well. Happy to be talking about this movie with you too.
All right. Of course, the movie is directed by Larry Cohen, 1982. Classic movie here, Q, The Winged Serpent. Kind of a strange, almost throwback mixture of movies, detective story, old school monster movie, and there's a wild kind of crime element story in here with Michael Moriarty. Just an excellent movie with an excellent cast, very New York. I guess we can just hop into it. The very beginning of the production is not like a long, in-depth production here. Larry Cohen was kind of fired, semi-fired, quit on this movie, I, Jury, that was eventually released, I think 82, 83. And it got absorbed by like Fox. It was in the same deal with The Entity from 82. That whole company went bankrupt, and Larry Cohen quit on the movie, got fired, and he decided he didn't want to go back home right away. He said he had the crew there. He was at the hotel, so he might as well make a movie. He got, some people together, and he decided to make Q, called in some friends from the military, which happened to be David Carradine, and boom, here we go. We got one of the craziest, wildest, giant monster movies in New York City ever. So there we go. Q is a great movie. Let's go.
I actually only saw it the first time maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. Whenever the Shout disc came out is when I saw it, because I bought it and then I watched it, and I was just like, because I was going through a Larry Cohen, like trying to like watch all his movies. There's still a couple I haven't seen, like Bone is one of the ones I haven't seen, and I actually just picked it up on DVD because I was reminded of it watching it. Like, oh, I always wanted to see that. But I like my favorite movies by him is like The Stuff, and I also really like his It's Alive trilogy because they're just bonkers as hell. But I think the thing I was most surprised by when I first watched this movie was Michael Moriarty's performance in it is like the greatest thing I've ever seen. I don't know what's going on with it, honestly. It's just like, it's almost like he's in a completely different movie, and they just like inserted his character into it. And I knew I was in for something special when there was literally like a 10-minute sequence of him playing piano and scatting, and he's like good at it. Because I looked up because I was like, what is the point of this scene? I'm glad it's there, but I was just like, why? But then I found out that Larry Cohen just like happened to find out that he plays piano and was like, yeah, let's put it in there, cool. And then he just lets him scat for like 10 minutes straight. And it doesn't really add anything. It's just a fun little, like, just aside. And I love, like, the part, he's leaving because they turn the music on. And they're like, and so he leaves. And David Carradine's like, hey, that was cool. And he's just like, what the fuck do you know? And it's like the most New York thing ever happening.
There's so many
That
nuances.
entire exchange is one of my favorite things in any movie ever.
There's a beautiful callback to it at the end, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. The whole movie has a nice little callbacks like that, yeah.
Experience with it for the first time was just watching the Shout disc and going, wow, this is amazing. Like, how has this not been on my radar this whole time? It's such a fun movie.
Yeah, Michael Moriarty is just absolutely brilliant. He's I think his performances in both this movie and The Stuff are just like so over the top, but yet we have this like multi-award winning actor who just like goes off the rails when allowed to, and he's allowed to improvise. And backing up, first of all, Bone is one of my all-time favorite movies, so you'll have to let me know when you watch it, and we'll talk about it. I got to sit with Yaphet Kotto at a convention, which was like a dream come true, and talk to him a little bit about Bone, and what a wild movie. But I first saw Q in the VHS era, and like a lot of the time back then, I was young, and I would just watch almost too many movies at once. Like I went to like a Larry Cohen spree where I was gonna watch anything I could directed by Larry Cohen, and I watched Q probably too late at night. I liked it, but rewatching it in more recent years, it's an absolutely incredible movie. I don't understand why it's not held in just extremely high regard. It certainly has its fans. I was supposed to do a print interview with Larry Cohen, and I really regret dragging my feet on that because he's now dead, and you don't get to interview dead people. But so I rewatched all of his movies, including the handful I hadn't seen, in around 2013, and getting ready for this interview that never happened. And just a phenomenal body of work. I wanted to say on this episode what my favorite Larry Cohen movies were, and I couldn't narrow it down to anything less than 10. These are movies that I don't just like, but like completely fucking am in love with, which is Bone, Black Caesar, Hell Up in Harlem, It's Alive, God Told Me To, Q, Full Moon High, Perfect Strangers, Special Effects, and The Stuff. And his other movies, I like. It's not like there's a bunch of duds in there. But you both touched on kind of a lot of points already. Like the Jury, he still has a writing credit on it, but he was actually very happy to see it fail when it opened on the same day as Q in New York City in 1982. They opened on the exact same day, which he found amusing, which was October 8th of 1982. But no, trying to imagine this movie without Moriarty. Moriarty is just completely off the rails. The scat scene is amazing. That sounds... take that out of context. Art Ettinger says the scat scene is amazing. but no, Michael Moriarty... I think it's interesting. Stephen King used to say that he would have cast Michael Moriarty instead of Jack Nicholson in The Shining. That was something that he would often say in interviews, that he thought Jack Torrance was like terribly cast in that movie, and his choice would have been either Michael Moriarty and he said a couple of other names, but Jack Nicholson and Michael Moriarty have a scene together in Hal Ashby's The Last Detail, and Moriarty steals the show. He can certainly hold his own against the best of the best. Not to say that if you asked me who do I prefer, Michael Moriarty or Jack Nicholson, I would say Michael Moriarty. I love them both, but Michael Moriarty is a very very underused. He's a comedic genius, right? One of the people who was almost cast in that role was Eddie Murphy. Larry Cohen supposedly just went to a comedy club and saw Eddie Murphy right before he broke and was like, this guy's going to be huge. He's fucking hilarious. And the investors were against Eddie Murphy because he was an unknown. But what a, it would have been a completely different movie with Eddie Murphy. Of course, he's a comedic genius too. But I can't even imagine this movie without Michael Moriarty.
I guess we'll talk a little bit about Michael Moriarty. He definitely has the best dialogue in here. Speaking of Larry Cohen, he loves character actors, as you can tell. There's numerous character actors in his movies, and he gives them starring roles. We all know on the commentary, he talks about approaching him in a restaurant and kind of putting the script in front of him. And the scene with the piano was a improvised scene. He got Carradine to come in, and he got him in that scene right away and added that with the piano, which adds a lot of nuanced scenes in here. A lot of the critics actually said the movie was terrible, except Michael Moriarty's kind of method performance in the middle. His dialogue is super memorable. He has the greatest throughout the entire movie, he has a great what is it I'm looking for, story arc. He's got the best story arc about not being able to cry, and at the end he's like, I'm not afraid anymore. All those kind of things and little details and nuances. Moriarty is fantastic in this. By far one of the best performances in 1982, I think. His dialogue is like I said, he improv and kind of a quality, he's very naturalistic and realistic, but he has that improv quality of somebody like a Bill Murray or Eddie Murphy, who just goes off the cuff enough but brings it back to where it's supposed to be. Only a great actor can do that. And talking just recently about De Niro, would be pretty straight on, then go on off and improvise a little bit. And some of the lines in here are so great. He's like, "Go get Murdoch. What's that guy's name? Murdoch. Get him down and get a picture of my arm around him," and that stuff like that. And when he does the "I want a Nixon-like pardon," it's just brilliant stuff. And although he is a character that has so many irredeemable qualities about him, he is a addict that's been mistreated his girlfriend, and he's a coward. At the time when he has the police kind of bent over and he has the advantage on them, you cannot help but side with him when he gets in the argument with Richard Roundtree. It's just a brilliant scene when he says, "I want you to kiss my ass on TV, live on television on the Johnny Carson show," is just one of the funniest things ever. And he says, "I'm pissing all over you and there's nothing you can do about it." He is that character that has never had anything go right for him. He's always been treated terribly. He's had a terrible life. But once he gets that one little ounce of power, he takes it to the full max. It's just a brilliant performance. It's a brilliant character type. A very gray character, which I don't think a lot of films would do today, but that's what made the 70s movies so great, and it's carrying over into the early 80s, which is funny because Q is really a throwback to the 50s movies if you look at Giant Claw and all the other giant monster movies. And the second big horror movie that uses stop motion this year, along with Basket Case by Frank Henenlotter, also another diehard New York movie. So I just wanted to get there. We're doing all the Mike and Moriarty love. We should probably talk a little bit about Larry Cohen. His career obviously started out early as a writer and went on. His first film was Bone in '72, and he did the blaxploitation movies with Fred Williamson. His first horror film was It's Alive in '74, of course, where he, did a really great job. His promotional skills were amazing, right? Everybody knows the tagline if anybody wants to say that one on the It's Alive film. But eventually moved in to making this movie and just constantly wrote and just always incorporated a lot of character actors into New York. Just one of the quintessential New York directors. Anybody else to mention? Yeah.
And he would he stuck to his roots, right? Like, what people get confused about what an exploitation film is and what a blaxploitation film is, because of how they were marketed. Bone, Black Caesar, and Hell Up in Harlem are all blaxploitation movies. They're all from that era. They were all marketed that way, and he never forgot that starting point. Of course, Richard Roundtree, one of the biggest blaxploitation stars, is in this movie, and then Larry Cohen went on to make Original Gangsters later in his career. But I think that the casting of Roundtree in this is certainly a nod to the director's blaxploitation roots, and Richard Roundtree, of course, is a wonderful actor too. One of the things, I don't want to jump around too much, but right now I'm preparing for the upcoming Cinema Wasteland Q&As, and I'm watching a lot of movies that pertain to the guests there. And I watched Q almost back to back with The Crazies, George Romero's The Crazies, and they're not movies that maybe seem particularly linked, but they do have a lot of similar themes. And Larry Cohen really is an underrated director. Like, I'm not a fan of Day of the Dead, for example, because Romero it's just so talky, and there's all this exposition, and it's repetitive, and it beats you over the head, and like some of it's entertaining, but the strong points in The Crazies and Day of the Dead are not the talky scenes. Whereas in Q, all of the dialogue is wonderfully quippy, and like the best stuff in Q has nothing to do with the monster or the eggs or any of the like sci-fi or horror elements, right? Like the best stuff are the dialogue scenes because they're fast-paced, they're quippy, and there's a ton of exposition, but it's just done in a entertaining, engaging way, and not, and any of the socio-political content is still done with the focus on entertaining you rather than beating you over the head. It's like I think the greatest biopic of all time is Malcolm X, because it's the way it's shot, the way it's put together. It never forgets that it's a movie, that it's like a work of entertainment, and it's so cinematic and so engaging from frame one to frame last. And so Larry Cohen's ability to make all the dialogue scenes so fun and quippy is is just something that I think people lose sight of, and I think this gets lumped in with just other like monster movies or big monster movies, and really it's so much more than that.
I think Q is like starts out kind of great because it doesn't fuck around or beat around the bush. It's straight up like window washer, head gets eaten off by a giant like Aztecian, winged god. Am I saying his name right? Quetzalcoatl. I can even say it
so
right.
hard
Quetzalcoatl.
Quetzal.
I mean, I know that's why they probably named it Q.
It's
Quetzalcoatl.
I think it's
Quetzalcoatl.
I don't know.
But I just love how there's
Good thing I'm not the only
basically there's three main plot lines that shouldn't go together, but he makes them go together, which is great because there's like a giant monster movie with a stop motion monster, and then there's a police procedural where the police are trying to figure out what's going on with the monster, and then there's also like a criminal type like redemption arc story with Michael Moriarty's character. So these are three separate storylines that he somehow, with the magic of editing, makes them feel like it's one cohesive movie, which I think is hard, but he gets it done. And in each of these plot lines are equally entertaining. So it's like kind of fun when you start to see them intersecting with each other, because like, if you take each of these plot lines like in a vacuum, they're all like kind of like, I want to say basic, but it's like basic stuff, like, but mixed together, it's like an incredible concoction of just like weirdness. And I think my favorite thing about Larry Cohen movies is these little asides that he puts in, like just little things that there's like this big thing now where, people are like, if it doesn't serve the plot, it shouldn't be in the movie, and they complain about that shit. But that's like the fun part of movies. And Larry Cohen would just didn't give a fuck about that. He would just put fun stuff in, like, oh, there's a lady suntanning on a roof and now her titties are out. You get to look at some titties. Or there's this one part where they're like, when Michael Moriarty, he's talking to the police and he's like, I know where he's at, but I want you to I want $1 million and all this. And in the background, like David Carradine's just like drawing this shitty, terrible picture of like the Q. Like he's like doodling them, and it's like the worst picture ever. And they keep zooming in on this like terrible like art he's sketching for like no reason. There's no reason to show that. It's just funny, like. Or
it's brilliantly edited, though. It's like I mean, it's like it's so like there are a lot of movies that like are slowed down by like everything lasting a few beats too long, like the Terrifier series, but like. Yeah, Larry Cohen weaves everything together so brilliantly, and it's short, it's tight, and it's rangy, and there's all these different things going on, but they're weaved together brilliantly through the editing. It's very, very quippy and quick.
Yeah, the editor on this picture was a long-term editor for him, and he first started working with him in See China and Die from '81, his TV movie, and worked all the way to him through The Ambulance in 1990. So they must have had some sort of shorthand for sure. And same thing. Yeah. Oh, I do want to mention before I forget, Art, I disagree completely with Day of the Dead and the Crazies. But I think there's just a difference in storytelling in terms of technique. Is Larry Cohen writes whatever the fuck he wants and writes himself out of the corner because that's the way he works. And there's a chaos and a whimsical part about his films, which Romero's are planned. So, I mean, maybe somebody can see it differently. Day of the Dead's my all-time favorite movie, so it's like without a rebuttal is just like
no. But I love the Crazies. I love the Crazies. It's just imagine if Larry Cohen directed the Crazies. That's all I have to say about it. If Larry Cohen directed the Crazies, it would be like the greatest movie ever.
I disagree because I think Romero has a certain quality about him that's more emotional and touching than Larry Cohen. Larry Cohen's movies are not emotional. I mean, Michael Moriarty is great, but the Crazies has a sense of miscommunication in it. I do think it's alive, but like, I don't know.
There's a lot of emotion in Q. You feel for this Moriarty guy.
Yeah,
he's like,
tragedy is not Cohen's strong point necessarily.
No,
in comparison to Romero, that's all Romero's.
But like, see, Romero's the Romero problem is that Martin is so brilliant, and you want like. He never made another Martin. He never made another movie as brilliant as Martin. Like there are a few movies that great, and so I think he suffered from just making something that terrific. But
I do think the qualities that Larry Cohen and George Romero do match up on, that I do think they give time for their actors, is they always have a little moment. I think Cohen's actually better at this than Romero for sure. Like I said, Romero's my favorite, but Cohen gives the actors time to brew their characters and have moments like Moriarty with the piano. For example, Day of the Dead. He gives Steele a scene that normally Steele's just a goon, but he gives him when he kills Miller. You look at the pathos in his eyes and he's upset about it. You can see when the characters actually snap in the movie. A lot of directors or writers or whatever would not give somebody any time. They don't give them any special moments. Well, like the Carradine scene when he's with his wife. Completely unneeded scene, really. But it adds a little touch in there that Carradine's kind of a joker, you know? He's almost like a slight hippie cop in a weird way in comparison to Richard Roundtree's aggressive fucking, let's say he's like a Hong Kong cop, right? He's just an abusive New York, Hong Kong, that kind of style. But,
I feel like we totally interrupted Michele, though. I apologize.
No, it's, but I do agree with, like, this film, like if you watch it on a surface level, it wouldn't feel emotional because it's very, I feel like a lot of Cohen's movies had this kind of like, I don't want to say detached, but he doesn't take a lot of things seriously, I guess. Like there's always like a little bit of like tongue in cheek going on almost all the time. And it's like in this movie for sure, because there's a lot of things like for during the big shootout scene, like one of the guys is like a mime, like it's just like funny stuff. I love stuff like that though. I feel like a lot of movies are kind of, they get focus group to death where anything interesting that might not appeal to every single person is like ironed out until it's like a slap. I call these movies slap movies. Like you could just throw it on and you forget it when it's off. It's a movie you can watch on your while you're on your phone scrolling, because like you literally won't miss anything because it's the same thing all the time. But these movies, like they had some stank on them, some flavor. I love movies that old movies in New York, like that are made like in the 70s and 80s, because really grimy. I also love that they have Michael Moriarty like literally climbing the stairs in the Chrysler building like 5,000 times in this movie. And I know you could just tell he's kind of getting exasperated by like the end of the movie, having to keep climbing shit. They're like, climb these stairs. Now you got to climb this ladder. Now you got to climb down the stairs. Now you got to climb back up the stairs and look at like the egg or whatever. There's like this desperate quality to his performance that increases over the entire film until he's like almost hysterical at the end of the film, which I absolutely love. He does that in It's Alive too. Like each movie progressively gets crazier. Like I don't know. There's just something about his films that really they're just entertaining. Like Art said like earlier, they're just entertaining. Like I think a lot of modern films just forget to be entertaining sometimes. Like even at the cost of like coherence or something making sense. Like people are too, I guess, obsessed with plot holes and stuff like that. When like, who cares? Was it entertaining? Like, it's not a fucking documentary. It's a movie. Like everything doesn't have to make sense in it. Like if you look at this movie, a lot of things don't make sense in it. But I don't know. They're just fun. They're just fucking fun and entertaining, which I think is missing in a lot of films nowadays.
And we're getting, those of us who whine about the current state of movies being over long, people like to, tell us to shut the fuck up. But like, and they're like, oh, you'll sit through a 10 episode Netflix. Actually, I won't. But I want to like tonight. I would like to see 2 movies, maybe 3 movies. If I think it was, I'm going to get the exact quote wrong, but Bill Landis said something along the lines of, if your movie is more than 2 hours long, it better be utterly fascinating. You better have like a really good reason for it to be super long. Like if you're Akira Kurosawa or Spike Lee, you can make a long movie. The 25th Hour, there's all these subplots, and Summer of Sam, another Spike Lee movie, where there's all these subplots that have absolutely nothing to do with the main story, but it's done so well, so brilliantly, and like I don't care if that movie's 6 hours long, But like if I'm watching a fucking 2 hour, 20-minute rom-com or like slasher movie, like come on, like get to the fucking point, But again, there can be exceptions, but you just have to, you better be using that time wisely. And these movies have like almost a Cronenberg level of like precision to how well edited they are. Q has no fluff, It is you could study editing techniques through watching the way this movie is put together.
I do want to mention something that Michele said, because I agree with it. I think that Larry Cohen does set his tone. He sets a weird tone where it's like it's grounded, but it's a little wacky, a little chaotic. Like stuff can happen. Like Joe Bob said something about that end scene where he shoots the crazy guy at the end, the like cult member. He was like, well, he just did that because I don't think Larry Cohen could shoot a normal death scene like where the guy doesn't keep getting up. He has to keep you fascinated with the entire thing, and he'd rather have it be a little bit nonsensical to keep the plot moving. But if you set that tone in the beginning, right, you're fine to carry out the insanity or the weirdness or the zaniness or the tongue-in-the-cheek thing. The problem with a lot of films, I think, is they set their tone dead serious and then do the same stupid shit to keep you entertained. But you're like, I don't understand why it's so deadly serious, and then it gets stupid. That's when I check out. Larry Cohen already has the tone set to where I know what I'm getting, even though it changes story 3 times. The tone, for some reason, feels all the same. It is a very well put together movie. Like you said, it's mixed perfectly. I didn't really think of that. And, the DP, I think, does great work, too. If you look how well it's shot, too, you think, like, you don't ever think of that. But the scene when they go and find the victim on the docks and they say, Richard Roundtree and Carradine are talking, and then it zooms up and just looks at the city. I'm like, that's a beautiful shot that's kind of just not really talking about how well, he placed the camera and things like that.
The practical effects are great, too, because, I think people would be like, oh, it's like claymation, stop-mation or whatever, but it's good claymation. He uses a lot of classic techniques that they use in like old King Kong movie and stuff, or like there's like one big fake like claw that they use the claw people with, and then there's the claymation version of the monster, and also there's some great gore. There's that one part where they find out that person that was like all skinned, fantastic looking, and there's another part where that they sacrifice somebody and he goes and lays down and they immediately start cutting into him. I mean, I know it's edited and stuff, but like it's really seamless. Like he lays down, they just start ripping dude open on his chest. Great looking. I like the egg prop is fun. Honestly, the big giant egg looks great. There's just a lot of really good practical effects that and obviously people would assume he's using claymation to be like cheap, but actually it's like I don't feel like it's like a price thing. It's more of an aesthetic style. Absolutely. So I mean, it probably honestly there's not a lot of people that do it as much anymore too. It's probably more expensive probably to film that stuff nowadays. I mean, maybe not when he did it. There's probably still people around that were in that kind of like area of expertise, but it's an aesthetic. He's going for the old-fashioned kind of monster movies. He's not doing it to be cheap. He's doing it for a style, a look.
Yeah, people will say like, oh, the monster looks so fake, and then you have to remind them, monsters aren't real. Like It's like this is how they know it looks this way, and it adds to the I don't want to use the word campy. I think a better word, wacky, zany sensibility that this movie has. I think the monster looks awesome, and like you said, the gore is no joke. The gore is severe. It is definitely on point and very well done. When it's a little bit less in the media right now, but there's this right-wing conspiracy QAnon phenomenon of our time that the media often refers to simply as Q. And I don't know about you two, but every time I hear a news story about Q, I'm thinking like the winged serpent.
I wish it was. I wish it was. It'd be a lot happier place, I'd rather have ancient prehistoric Aztec monsters ripping people apart than what the hell Q is. But speaking of the special effects, we have Dave Allen and Randy Cook, who are long-term special effects artists. And David Allen, recently got some love because his movie that he was making for Full Moon, Prime Evils, got released finally and completed and stuff like that. But Dave Allen was a Full Moon guy. Worked on all those Full Moon effects on dirt cheap budgets and did a really good job. Randy Cook also worked on some of those Full Moon movies and did a bunch of other bigger films. Had like a touch in tons of movies. So, it's just the special effects are great. And the story on the commentary, I feel like I hate repeating the commentary stories instead of just talking about the movie because I feel like everybody who's watching this has heard it. But he shot everything before, which you'd never do, and then just ask them to re-put the monster. So make sure you give us room. He's like, oh, it's already done. The movie's done. And they're like, what the fuck? So they had to go ahead and add Q in there. But for some reason Cohen was so good at that it still turned out really damn good.
Yeah, one of the things that we talked about the fact that Eddie Murphy might have been in this. Bruce Willis was also considered for David Carradine's character of Shepard, and can you imagine that? What an odd choice that would have been like a pre-Moonlighting Bruce Willis, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of, and I think a lot of the time, exploitation directors are proud to be like, I discovered this person, but Larry Cohen really did. These are true stories as far as we can tell, and that would have been an interesting casting choice. But Carradine's great, and I think a lot of audiences just know him from Kill Bill. A lot of mainstream
Mm-hmm.
audiences, but anyone who ever flipped channels back in the day saw a whole lot of Carradine. So
He's
Carradine,
kind of got he has a great aura in this. And I love Cohen's like attention to detail because there's that part you talked about, Dave, earlier where he's talking about his wife and he's reading that book, you know, after he reads that book, the rest of the movie, he keeps giving people like giant bird facts that he learned from the book. They'll just be talking about something different, and he's like, "Did you know giant birds are 7 times as strong as people or something?" And like the whole rest of the movie, he's just like giving people bird facts. I just love that there's these little touches that and like you said, there's another callback to like when him and Michael Moriarty they first meet when he's doing the scat piano. He's like, "Oh, hey, good job on the piano guy." And Michael Moriarty's like, "What the fuck do you know?" And then later they call back to that. Like at the end, he's like, "Yeah, well, what the fuck do you know?" And I'm like, that's just like fun little things that they, like people would say a movie like this, if you just explain to them what happened, they would like say it was a stupid movie, but it's not. It's only something this goofy could be made by somebody smart. I don't know how to explain that better, but like you have to know your way in and out of dialogue and construction of film and like formal techniques to make something this silly work so well. Does that make sense? Like he knows what the fuck he was doing in every single one of these movies. He knew exactly what kind of tone he wanted. He executed it perfectly. Like none of this is accidentally funny or unintentionally goofy. It's all on purpose, which I think is like one of the best things about like his style.
he exuded really a high level of intelligence when I met him. We all have met a lot of actors and directors, and some directors are very hey, 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 kind of like outgoing. Like Larry Cohen struck me as kind of like a quieter type, but definitely extraordinarily intelligent. Definitely someone with an advanced sense of humor. He was a very comical on the Q&A we did. I met him first at Chiller Theater in April of 2013, and then the following year he did a Cinema Wasteland in April of 2014, and we did a panel called Larry Cohen and Friends, and it was Larry Cohen and Tom Atkins from Halloween 3 and Night of the Creeps, Lorene Landon from Hundra. That's what I know her from, at least. I know she was in a lot of other things, but when I think of Lorene Landon, I think of her beating the shit out of unsuspecting stunt people and extras in Hundra, and Garrett Graham from Phantom of the Paradise and Used Cars. So it's kind of like a panel of strong personalities, and people who are all kind of jokers. And Larry Cohen definitely held his own in that group and had a lot to say. It was really a fun and memorable thing to get to be a part of. And it's a shame that he died before we got to do a print interview. But yeah, like everyone who worked with him really liked working with him. That's why so many people would work with him repeatedly. There are some directors who, if you look at their filmographies, every movie has all different people, and that kind of makes you, I wonder why that is. Whereas, this was the first time Moriarty worked with him, I think, and then he's in I think at least 4 other things. He's in The Stuff, Return to Salem's Lot, Island of the Alive, and the Masters of Horror episode. So, that's kind of a lot in a maybe 10, 15-year period. And Moriarty was doing so much work in that time on TV and movies, but clearly they liked each other, and being able to improvise was, probably something Moriarty wasn't always allowed to do, and he was very, very good at it, of course, as evidenced here. I also got to meet Richard Roundtree once in 2010 at Chiller, and that was one of the I don't know sometimes until while I'm meeting the person that I'm going to have that emotional of a response. Like, you know, I go to a lot of conventions, I meet a lot of people, and there's just like, I was like, I just fucking met Shaft. Like, I had this moment where I was just like awe-stricken, and you know, like for all the criticism that can be levied against the high prices and the commercialization, and you know, like the unpleasantness of convention culture and fan culture, like getting to shake Richard Roundtree's hand is pretty fucking awesome.
Hell
And
yeah.
you know, but yeah, I don't mean to ramble about some of these convention tales, but you could tell too just the level of respect that Atkins, Landon, and Graham had for Cohen on that panel. They were all just kind of like, it's fucking Larry Cohen, you know. It's like whoever else they worked with, you know, and they all have worked with fine people. You know, you could tell that they hold him in as high a regard as anyone else. So,
Yeah. Speaking of Moriarty, you could just tell that he's somebody that needs to have his talent harnessed. If you watch his other movie from this year, Bloodlink by Alberto Del Martino, it's a completely unhinged, like harnessed movie performance where you're like, I don't know if this is good or bad or this. The whole movie's like that, but his performance is wacky, dual role, nonsensical. And if Cohen would have directed that movie, it would have been fucking good. You could tell it would have been good, but I think maybe should we go through the plot here? You know, the quick kind of rundown on the plot. Ancient Aztecian winged serpent, possibly a god, is brought back to life, possibly by a group of people that worship him by ritual sacrifice. The creature ends up taking refuge in the Chrysler Building, and to kind of combat, you know, the end of King Kong on the Empire State Building is what Cohen wanted to do. And it's up to some police officers to figure out where the monster is with the help of a criminal and Michael Moriarty, and kill it and stop it. And stop the ritual murders. So the plot is completely wacky. Anybody that tuned in that's never seen Q, yeah, I mean, just randomly talking about Michael Moriarty right off the bat, because that's the big thing that sits there. I do want to talk a little bit about, you know, some of the character actors and stuff at the end, but we can go through
rather than be one of these people who's like, oh my god, there's people who haven't seen Q. I'm jealous of people like you are in for just a fucking treat, you know? Like sometimes I just get jealous when I hear that someone hasn't seen one of my favorite movies, like when Michelle said she's about to watch Bone. That movie is I guarantee you will adore that movie. It's one of the best. But like I think a lot of people would only watch Q if they're in the mood for like a big monster movie. Like they don't understand that that's like so secondary. It's not even secondary. It's like whatever comes after tertiary. It's like yeah, there's a big monster, but like that's not what we're doing, you know? Like it is just a zany, wacky, genre-bending, wonderful, like engaging, super fun flick that like, you know, not liking Q is like not liking to smile, you know? Like I think that most people would get a kick out of it, but it's kind of a tough sell sometimes, you know? There's a lot of things for people to watch, and you tell them, oh, Q the Winged Serpent, and they're like, oh, I've seen the poster, it has like a monster in it, that's not my thing. Well,
the poster's dope too.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant poster.
Fantastic art.
Yeah, super great. But no, I mean, Q is just you know, I don't want to say it's an underseen movie because that makes it sound like it's some underground flick, which it certainly is not. But like, it needs more people putting eyes on it today. It's a wild one, and when I rewatched his filmography, it definitely is one of Cohen's very best. Although, like I said, I can only narrow it down to my top 10. But anyway,
there's actually a couple movies I need to catch up on. Bone, Return to Salem's Lot. Like I never saw that. I only saw the first one. I never saw that one, which that also has Michael Moriarty in it, right?
Yep.
So I get even more Moriarty. Moriarty.
More, yeah. I like that. I think I could be getting this wrong. I'm almost positive it was shot back to back with It's Alive 3, and they have a lot of the same cast members, some of the same sets, and both of them are a lot of fun, you know. And there was like just this glut of like direct to video product then, and it's easy to have missed something like that, you know. It's like there was like I remember even as a kid when that came out being like, Return to Salem's Lot. It's like, do I really need to, you know? And then it's like, well, it's directed by, you know, directed by Larry Cohen. It just might be great, and it is. You know, it's like easily the best film, Salem's Lot. You know, whatever you want to call it, the Salem's Lot IP or whatever. It's the best one.
I'm a bigger fan of the first one, but I think the second one is kind of misunderstood. I think people took Return to Salem's Lot as a serious movie, and it's clearly a comedy. It's clearly a silly, fun comedy. It's a weird movie for sure. It was the last movie of tons of people involved with it too. So there's no special features on the disc. I would have liked to see some stuff on that one, but I watched that one recently. I've not seen every Larry Cohen movie either. I've missed out on I've never seen Black Caesar, which is terrible. But I've seen Bone. You know, I've seen a lot of the weird.
Black Caesar is one of the greatest blaxploitation movies, and you know, kind of like Larry Cohen movies, like I described. Q just kind of blended into me for me when I first saw it, because I watched it when I was just watching all of his movies. I probably saw it the same night I saw God Told Me To or something, and I liked them both and moved on. And but like, yeah, I went through a period where I watched like every blaxploitation movie I could get my hands on, and like really like Black Caesar is like a top 5. You know, I think Hell Up in Harlem is the better known of the two. It has better production values, but Black Caesar is just it's a it's a wild movie. And you know, I think blaxploitation cinema is a charged subject, especially you have, you know, a fair number of white people like Larry Cohen who, you know, made a lot of money off of the blaxploitation era, off of the backs of African Americans. And but you know, I think a big piece of my personal interest in it is just like it kind of peaked out around the time that I was born. You know, I was born in 1975, and that's like the year the Candy Tangerine Man came out, for example. And it's just, there's all this like all this footage of like cities in the 70s in these movies, and they're just like they're subversive movies. They're in your face, and you know, they're certainly not for everybody, but you know, if you told me that for the rest of the year all I could watch was blaxploitation movies, I'd be okay. I'd be fine. So
I think, you know, also blaxploitation films, like sometimes you'll see people say, well, some of them were directed by black folks, but a lot of them were directed by white people that were kind of like, you know, like you said, making money off of black cinema and black culture, right? But so you can tell, like, when the director like would get invited to the cookout, if you know what I'm saying. And Larry Cohen would be invited to the cookout. Like, you could just tell if they're making it because they just think these black actors are cool and they think this stuff's cool and they want to like make movies about it, or if they're like exploiting these actors or exploiting stereotypical type stuff that, you know, playing to like what white audiences think black people are like, you know. And you could just feel the difference between those kind of movies and people that are like down with the culture, that just like the culture and wanted to make movies with black actors and stuff like that. And his stuff definitely doesn't feel like he is like, you know, like he's like disrespecting anybody or anything like that. He genuinely seems interested in I also think he has maybe he's interested in people like from, you know, class issues, you know, urbanization, you know, the common man, people that are being subjugated. Like, he kind of has interest in the dynamics between different groups of people and how they interact with each other in the U.S. So that comes through in his work, you know, sometimes too. Besides all the like the sillier, goofier kind of stuff, like it just seems like he kind of had a distaste for the government in America and policies and stuff. Like The Stuff is a really good example of that. Like, it's a goofy movie about like, you know, this goop that makes people like, you know, all crazy when they eat it, but it's also about like corporatization and ad revenue and, you know, taking advantage of people and middle class workers and all this kind of stuff. So like his stuff is very savvy in that way, which makes his blaxploitation stuff a little more interesting to me, I guess, than somebody that was just making a movie to make a buck, I guess you could say. I mean, he wanted to make money too, because everybody wants to make money. It's how you live. But you know what I'm saying? It just felt a little bit, there's more to it than that.
Definitely had an idea and,
No,
to call out stuff for sure. Go ahead, Art.
Yeah, I like the blaxploitation era is just like, like something like Ganja and Hess, which is an art film. It's like totally just like high art. It's a blaxploitation movie because of how it was marketed and how it had, and like just like a lot of incredible films came from that era. And like you're saying, Larry Cohen's movies are different than like I'm not going to give I could give negative blaxploitation examples. I'm not going to do that because I'm a fan of those movies too. But you can tell that he'd be invited to the cookout. I think that's a really well said point. And he's from an urban environment. He grew up in Washington Heights, which is a very complicated neighborhood in New York City. That's where, when my mom's family first came to this country, they settled. And it's a interesting area. It's predominantly Dominican and Puerto Rican, but it also has, like, at that time it was very like divided up. Like, it had like an all black part, an all European part. The Dominicans and Puerto Ricans live here, and like now it's more of a melting pot. But it's where he grew up, and he certainly didn't grow up like in the suburbs of Jersey. He grew up in Washington Heights, which is an interesting place. Yeah, the movie, like, when it first opened in New York City, like, so many, and I don't mean to keep focusing on negative points, but so many, like, low-level genre journalists will, like, go on the IMDb or on, like, thenumbers.com and try to, like, look up box office grosses for a movie. And for a lot of older titles like this, that information is not really available. And so what you get is not the actual number. Like, Q was actually a big hit, but if you look on the internet, you won't be able to tell that. But one of the theaters it opened at on its opening day in New York was the Rivoli, which is like a giant theater. It sat 2,092 people. Originally, it was twinned just the year before Q came out, and it had two screens. One was 890 and one was 744. But to give you an idea, like, that was the theater that, like, Jaws opened in Manhattan. Like, it was a big deal. And, like, the movie did big there and in other mainstream theaters, but it also did really well on 42nd Street. And Larry Cohen on the commentary track talks about it playing at the New Amsterdam. I actually don't think that's where it played. It seems to have played at the Prowler. I'm sorry, with the Prowler as its second feature, which is kind of amusing that people would go see Q, which is very lighthearted, and then see the Prowler, which is only lighthearted to sickos like me. But that's what it was on a double bill with on 42nd Street. And it played at the Lyric, which is, again, a huge theater. It sat 1,370 people. And then that same double bill went to the Liberty, which sat 1,054 people. And finally at the Times Square, which sat 1,057 people. But that wasn't it for Q. Q was such a big hit its first time around that in the middle of the following year, when 1990 the Bronx Warriors opened, Q was the second feature to that. Now, in some ways, that double feature makes more sense to me than Q and the Prowler, although the Prowler is a better film than the Bronx Warriors. But it played for 2 more weeks at the Lyric and 1 more week at the Liberty. 6 weeks in these theaters is a huge amount of time, especially considering that Q is also playing all over the city elsewhere, and these were huge theaters. It's not like, so, if you had, like, if you were coming anywhere near filling up these giant theaters with Q, it was doing very, very well. And the movie didn't, like, open everywhere in 1982 on that date. It kind of slowly rolled out. I found AdMats as late as late 83 with it opening first run in some cities in the U.S. So, it took its time getting out there before becoming a big hit on video and on cable. But, I just can't really imagine walking into one of these giant old movie palaces and seeing Q in, like, if any of us are lucky enough to see Q on film someday, it'll be at, a drive-in or some repertory theater showing it on a relatively small screen. I mean, those screens don't exist anymore, even in Manhattan, but just the idea that such huge theaters showed these movies just like gets my gears going, and I just want to go back in time and experience that.
I think some of the negative critical reception is also that Sam Arkoff produced it from AIP, and he did a lot of the B movies for Corman and the Poe adaptation. So people just saw that, and then the critics picked up on it, and they said, this movie, Michael Moriarty's great, but everything else is crap. Because, critics follow suit a lot of the times, especially back in the day. They don't want to ruin their reputation, if you will. So, I mean, if I do want to mention Candy Clark too, who kind of played a motherly figure through the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
She pops up in Cat's Eye, At Close Range. She's Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But one that I forgot she was in, and I looked her up, and I was like, oh yeah, she plays the waitress in the Blob remake from the 80s, where she has the amazing scene with Jeffrey DeMunn with the wink and the phone booth. And so she's really good in this, and her performance was a little shaky the first couple times I watched. Just rewatching it, I was like, no, she's good. She's good. And she's got that motherly kind of presence. She kind of was really good at that,
What about the observation you made that as far as we know, you're the first to notice this? Why don't you share that?
Okay, before I do want to mention a couple character actors. James Dixon does not get the appreciation he deserves. He's Larry Cohen regular. He knew him in the military. He pops up in tons of his movies, from Black Caesar all the way to The Ambulance. He's in It's Alive movies, in Maniac Cop, and he gets killed in part 2. He's in this. He's good, fun character actor, as the mustache. He's a police officer. Eddie Jones from Chud. Is the night watchman kind of guy, or the day watchman. He also pops up in one of Art's favorite and probably one of his bigger roles as the uncle in New Kids. The kind of guy looking to make some money. But the one that I noticed that shocked me is the scene in the diner about an hour into the movie. We're having like the police diner next to the headquarters or whatever, and we're looking there, and there's this guard, kind of this short, stocky guy with a hat with this big, thick mustache, and I'm like, that looks just like Robert Vogel from Basket Case, the guy who runs the Broslin Hotel, who's like, oh, what's going on here? And I was like, there's no doubt that's got to be him. And I look in the credits, I can't find him. He's acting around that time, same year. And then I mentioned it to Art, and Art said, I'm gonna send Frank Henenlotter a direct fucking question, and he said, yeah, it's him. So it's still funny that you look at these places, Internet Movie Database, Wikipedia, commentaries, and there's just no mention of some of these things out there, because he's probably just a day worker, extra in this movie. But it's insane that he's in both fucking stop motion monster movies of the 82. Robert Vogel, no lines in this one, but he does look at Carradine, and he gives him the go ahead to kick the reporters back out. But yeah, it's just amazing. I was like, yeah, I love that guy. So him being in Q is awesome.
No, and those of us who actually do the legwork, you cannot just go on the IMDb and assume that it's gospel. It is user driven, and any one of us could add, subtract, mess up an IMDb page. And one of my all-time favorite movies is House on the Edge of the Park, and the actress from Mozambique in that movie, or Martinique, depending on who you ask where she was from. Very, very distinct looking actress. And I was watching Ruggero Deodato's Concord Affair, and there she was. And like, it's not on the internet anywhere. It's like one of these things that, or I remember years ago, I was watching this like shitty softcore comedy American Tickler, and there was Louis De Jesus from Bloodsucking Freaks, and like, you feel like goddamn like Fernando de Soto or something when you discover something like this. But you're like, oh, I'm a whatever. But no, I mean, never. I remember I mentioned Ganja and Hesseretti, but like I remember before the internet as a kid, renting Blood Couple and Black Vampire on the same day. This describes my childhood to a T, right? So I rent these movies on the same day. It's the same fucking movie. And rather than being upset, I just felt like a goddamn genius. I thought I just discovered like a cure for cancer or something. I'm like, and I go to school, no one gives a shit. I'm like, did you know that Black... What are you talking about? We don't give a shit. Like, why are you... Like we're
People
watching...
get so mad at me for that shit when I'd be like that. At 13, 14, they'd be like, leave me alone.
Yeah, they're like, dude, like, if you can point us to where the tits are on Cinemax, we appreciate you. But otherwise, shut up, like, Okay, well,
Yeah, I remember like being young and discovering movies have alternate titles.
crazy, right?
I was
Yeah.
like, what?
Hell yeah. Yeah. Or like you're watching the TV version of Grease and they cut out Grease Lightning and you're like, what the fuck? Like, yeah. Um,
Like during my age, we kind of grew up watching, I grew up watching more cable versions of stuff just because that's what I had access to. And then rewatching stuff as an adult, like, and finding, like, a good example of this is I watched the TV version of Beetlejuice as a kid so much that when I watched the regular version, there's this, the part where he knocks a tree over, he's
Yeah.
like, nice fucking model, honk honk, and he honks his, like, dick. I was like, fucking mind. I was like, wait, was this in the movie the whole time? Because I had seen Beetlejuice probably like 100 times and never saw that part as a kid because it was always the edited version. I was like, dude, he honks his dick in this, and he says, "Fuck." Where, like it was like I was like transported to another dimension of like the Beetlejuice that has fuck and dick honking in it. Like it's just like this is how it is sometimes.
yeah.
It's nothing more exciting than seeing an extended cut of a movie you've loved. I remember going to Media Play or something, and I'm going to get Dawn of the Dead, which Art hates because he doesn't like Romero, but that's fine.
I don't
That's
hate
fine.
Dawn of the Dead.
I'm just fucking with you. So I
It
go
is.
and-
It is one of the most overrated movies. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
But they have. I mean, it's no thing, right? Art, but.
The thing who stopped the war.
But they had the extended cut, which they listed as director's cut, and like 12-year-old me has been watching Dawn of the Dead religiously for 2 years now. I'm 10 to 12, and I'm like, what? And they also had the Crazies there, so I grabbed that, and I'm like, oh, the Crazies, and it's like Night of the Living Dead, but it's in between. And I was just, my mind was blown. I watched them, and I was so excited. I'm a big fan of the Crazies, love the Crazies, and it was just so cool to see that. And speaking of edited lines, the one that always got a kick out of everybody around my age was "The Price is Wrong," Bobbie, from Happy Gilmore. Oh, those are so good. I love that. So, is there anything anybody wants to mention about Q, the Winged Serpent?
I just have I have a question before we start fading here, and it's a question for Michele. I don't know how comfortable you are discussing what you do for a living, but what would you do if, as an air traffic controller, you suddenly saw a giant winged serpent? What would your reaction be?
Like, I guess I would just have to move the traffic around it. So we do have bird procedures. So I guess maybe since he's a giant bird, I would just like have to use my bird procedures, which is like, have an aircraft give me the location, type, altitude, and then I have to issue that for 15 minutes. So I would just have to give a giant bird advisory for, and you probably, if it's that big, it would probably show up on my radar too. So it'd probably be a big old, because birds show up on a radar if there are enough of them. If they're a big enough flock, they'll put out what's called, it looks like a primary target, but you'll see like a lot of little ones. It's just a big flocks of birds. So I would just assume there'd be a big fucking target on my scope. Maybe it's like moving across, so I'd just have to keep the aircraft away from it. But I would freak out, I guess. We have procedures for weird stuff like UFO. We have UFO procedures. People think, what's weird? So we have UFO procedures, and you're supposed to give them this number to call. And I always think about Return of the Living Dead when they call that number and they just fucking nuke them. And I'm always like, what is that number? Like, I've never had to give anybody the UFO number, but now I'm wondering, like, what is that number? Like, they go take them out, like
Archimedes, rhubarb, hot dog, Niner, 0, Niner.
But there are UFO procedures, so I would assume it would probably maybe get unidentified object procedures for that too. So, but yeah, that's actually a fun question. I wish people would ask me air traffic questions more often.
It's interesting. So they do have a protocol for Q, but you don't have a protocol for QAnon, though.
No, not yet.
We should. Where's this rank among your Cohen movies, guys? I know Art kind of said it's in this top 10, but where's it rank?
High, fucking high. I mean, Bone's one of my favorite movies, so it's like really hard for me not to say that my favorite Coen Brothers movie is Coen Brothers. The fuck was that? I just said my favorite my favorite. I'm gonna use that next time I'm in the company of some douchebag telling me what her favorite Coen Brothers movie is. I'm gonna be like, my favorite Coen Brothers movie is Hell Up in Harlem. is what I'm going to say. And they will
I've
look
never
at
seen
me.
that one.
They'd be like, "Oh, is that a direct to video? Like, is it on Netflix? I don't know. There's so many different like Cohen eras, you know. Like, for years, I would tell people that my favorite Cohen movie is special effects. It's totally not. Like, I just love that movie. Like, I love so many of his movies for different reasons. But I would probably put Q like very high up, like either in second or third place after Bone and maybe Black Caesar. Those are probably my two favorites. But again, there's like kind of these eras, you know, I definitely I adore all 10 of those movies as stated in the beginning. So I'll shut up now. I have no fucking clue. Q's high up though.
Yeah, I've definitely put it high up in mine. I haven't seen like all his movies, but like I said, my favorite's still The Stuff. But that's probably because I grew up watching it. That was just on repeat when I was young. I also really like God Told Me To, just because it's also it kind of has the same energy. I feel like as Q, just whacked out energy. It starts whacked out, it gets more whacked out, and it's just I almost feel like they would make a really good double feature. Q and God Told Me To, the whacked out Cohen, the whacked out Cohen brothers, double feature. But yeah, so Stuff, God Told Me To, It's Alive, specifically the third one is my favorite one of those movies. And yeah, so this would rank top 5, I guess. Top 5.
I got to give some love to It's Alive 3. I owned the Alive 2. I remember watching 1 and enjoying it. 2, I was a little let down on 2. And I was like, all right, we'll watch 3. And I hadn't watched it in years, but I watched it and I was like, when the babies are all muscled out walking out, I was like, what the fuck is this? It was so fun.
I think 3 is the best one by far. 3 is my favorite.
It's great. I mean, it's a lot of fun. It's so good. I'm trying to find a photo. I see the actual thing hidden there. When Cohen briefly did conventions, he was selling stuff cups, like screen-used actual stuff cups, which I have one, and it's super cool. It's just it's one of the ones from the movie, and I love the thing. But
I don't think I can get past. I think it's Q in the stuff because I watched a million times when I was a kid, and I used to quote it all the time. The stuff that tastes that makes you hungry for more, and then Q and Q's going up. Like I watched Q 3 times for this. I watched it once, then I did the commentary, and I was like, I'll watch it again today, and I was incredibly impressed how fast paced it was and how I could follow and it was fine. You know what I mean? I was like, oh man, it's so easy to watch. And I was like, there's like a couple movies struggling on my top 10, and I'm like, it's so close. There's like 3 or 4. I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, and I feel like this one pushed up higher on there to be on the top 10 of 82. So, and its problem is Cohen's movies are all come out in like some of the best years of horror movies ever made. Like 85 has like 4 of my favorite all-time movies ever, and 82 is a real strong top-heavy year. Like probably about 15 fucking excellent horror movies for me. So it's hard. I feel like he always gets robbed, and he shouldn't.
Well, Q, I'm already spoiling our top 10 episode, but Q is, of course, on my top 10 of 82. Like, no question. What's the shaving cream line in the stuff? What does he say to him? Like, you haven't lived till you've eaten. What does he say?
It's the kid eats the shaving cream to cover up for eating the stuff, and then he finds him.
He says something amazing.
Sometimes you got to eat shaving cream. I mean, he's nuts. Again, before we leave, I didn't really Richard Roundtree. If Michael Moriarty steals the fucking show, but Richard Roundtree is so fucking good in this. His delivery, totally underrated actor. I recently watched that Crack House movie, and he is leagues better than anyone else in that fucking movie. He's like so good, and I was just like, man, I just was like, and Cohen basically talks in the commentaries like, man, he's just as good as Denzel Washington. He just didn't get his chance. He didn't get the roles. There's a lot of actors like that. I think he's one of them for sure. He's a good-looking guy too. He's got a great head of hair and everything. Do you guys want any last words? Any last settings on Q before we get out of here? Any plugs?
I'm working on a couple things that are upcoming. Some really fun Japanese exploitation films are in the pipes. 2 films I think that people are going to be really excited to finally get nice Blu-rays. One of them I don't think's ever been on Blu-ray, honestly. I only remember ever seeing it on DVD, but so I've been kind of in Japanese exploitation mode. Well, like we were talking about Ash earlier, going to see Ash, the new Flying Lotus movie. I did an essay on the Kuso release for Vinegar Syndrome, which is still available. So if you want to try out some Flying Lotus stuff, even though I haven't seen Ash yet, but I can already tell them going to be two whole different genres of stuff. Kuso is one of the best, most surreal, grossest, nastiest, shit-covered, feces, semen, sticky, pus, spurt movies I ever seen. It's fantastic. Please, you don't even have to buy the release that I'm on, but just watch Kuso. If you're gonna watch Ash, I need to see people do this as a double feature to get every side of Flying Lotus's brain.
Wait, Michelle, you also should plug. You have a new the new Error 4444 that just came in within the last month or so.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, I have those right here. I have one of them. Egg is one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie is really fun. It's also I love that my niche is now the weird Japanese movies that everybody doesn't think is important enough to want their name on, I guess. But I love writing about these things because they're really underseen. And Egg is fantastic. And Error 444, they do really good work. And the other one I have these because I literally just got them in the mail. But Coming Soon, which is a really cool early 2000s Thai horror film, meta. If you like demons, it's kind of the same kind of thing where people are in a movie theater and the movie is attacking them, and it's it's a meta type thing about film. And it's also kind of a funny, I don't know if it's intentional, but it's kind of anti-piracy, because the reason that they're getting killed is because they pirated this movie that has a ghost in it. So I just think it's kind of funny that that's kind of the role of the way the film goes. That's another cool cover. These have really sweet covers. So I love, yeah. And I'm actually working on Error 444 has more stuff coming out that I've done a couple essays on that they're in the process of announcing soon. So I know they don't release a lot every year, but every single one they do has a lot of love. They also hire a lot of diverse people to work on their stuff, a lot of women, a lot of POC and stuff like that. So I think people should check out their stuff more. They're kind of a little underrated boutique, I think.
Yeah, no, they're very cool. I've had the pleasure of doing a few commentaries for them. We did Run to Kill, Red to Kill, and what was the third one we did for them? God, I should know. Run and Kill, Red to Kill, and maybe it was just those two. If there was a third one we did for them, I'm slipping with my.
You weren't on Red Spells, right?
Red Spells Red. But I do also have the things I got in the mail yesterday. They're not within arm's reach. One quick second. They're not far. 1 second.
Before when Art goes away, I have seen Kuso and Egg, and those are two of the fucking weirdest movies I've seen. I've never even heard of Coming Soon, honestly, and that's pretty amazing to do when it comes to weird movies, because I used to, you know what I mean? Never even heard of it.
Well, Error, they're dipping into Thai horror films, which actually kind of don't have the greatest distribution over here in the West. So a lot of movies, if you're in a Thai horror, they got a lot of good stuff coming up in that area.
It's really true. There's whole countries of genre films that we just aren't watching, Mm-hmm. In this month's Vinegar Syndrome releases, Bruce Holacek and I have a commentary track with first-time commentator Ryan Smith on Her Vengeance. It's a double feature with Devil Fetus, and I don't know if this is blurring in and out probably, but these are two excellent Hong Kong movies. And, I think it's important to, when possible, bring in people with specialized knowledge. Ryan Smith is just a Hong Kong film obsessive, and Bruce and I know him. He's been a great resource to us, and so, we asked him to do this track with us, and I think it's really important to not just have the same voices all the time. When there's someone who is an expert, if you have the opportunity to bring them in, try to do so. And it's like I help with Q&As at conventions, and I was asked to do a Q&A with Ray Sager at Shockstock last year or 2 years ago, and it's like the guy who did the interview for Ultraviolent is going to be there. Like, he should do the Q&A. I'll do it with him, but like, I'm not going to steal the show for someone else who is more qualified than me. Speaking of which, we also did a 1 hour on-camera interview. Can you see this? With Lydia Lunch for this release from Saturn's Core, which is a Vinegar Syndrome partner label. I have had a crush on Lydia Lunch ever since I first saw Mondo, New York in middle school. But she is someone who is known for being really mean to interviewers. She thinks it's funny to fuck with people interviewing her, especially, dorky white dudes like me. So I went in there with, again, someone who hasn't done a DVD special feature before, Max Almeida, because he's a huge Lydia Lunch fan. He knows more about her than I do. So why would I do a 1 hour interview with her myself when I could bring in a super fan of hers? And so he helped with this, and it came out really well. I'm really proud of the interview, and she was actually very nice to us. It was intimidating because she's fucking Lydia Lunch, and these short films are from a period where she was doing a lot of things for shock value that are not of our time, that she can maybe reframe the reasons why she was doing that stuff, and you can take or leave her contemporary answers for why she was using some of the language she used back then. Was it just for shock effect, or was there something else going on? And then also we have the new issue of Razor Cake. Razor Cake is the magazine I write record reviews for. What makes this extra special for me is the next batch of reviews I'm going to be doing for Razor Cake, which are due at the beginning of April, will include my 1500th record review. I have now reviewed over 1,500 records between Punk Planet and Razor Cake, and that is a lot of fucking records, and I am very proud that I have not burned out, and that I am part of such a cool magazine. Razor Cake is awesome, and anyone into punk music and any of its subgenres should definitely check it out. It's a cool publication. They're a non-profit, and they're the last kind of maximum rock and roll styled zine of their type out there, so people should definitely check out Razor Cake. And other plugs, like I have a commentary I can't talk about that I'm about to do, and maybe two commentaries that I'm about to do, and then of course convention season is soon upon us. The spring version of convention season and Cinema Wasteland, of course, is not only a personal favorite, but also I get to be involved in the Q&As. So lots of cool stuff coming up. But this is cool. This is we want to plug Mr. Parka's channel. I really like doing these, and there's a lot of people sort of doing this, and again, not trying to be negative, but they don't all do it this well. So it's always a pleasure to appear on here. There's always cool people, and I like the way that you run it too, Dave, because you don't feel the need to like direct the conversation per se. You kind of trust the guests to handle that. But Michelle's the best of the best. Like there's a lot of people doing a lot of work on DVDs, Blu-rays, and writing essays for booklets, etc. There's so many people who will just accept any assignment, even if they have no specialized knowledge in it. Whereas if Michelle's on something, she knows what she's talking about, and she's going to have something interesting to say. So
I appreciate the compliment.
Yeah, no, there's there's like some people who really shine in this field, and you're one of them. So
thank you.
Also, thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it. And also thanks for the kind words. I mean, you get the people that you know are smart and smarter than you to talk about something else, and you don't it's like even telling somebody how to act when you hire them to act, You bring in the people, you don't try to control what they say or do, you know what I mean? They know you brought them on for a reason, right?
Keep it
Thanks
up,
again.
everybody. Keep up the good goddamn work, because there's a lot of assholes in this society, and some of us are not them. So, yeah.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks for having us on.
Anytime.
I'll be playing piano somewhere. I'm pretty good.
Yeah, what the fuck do you know?
Yeah, that's right. What the fuck do I know? But I know I'm not afraid anymore.
Just your good old-fashioned monster.
Sitting on this damn information. You could have prevented it. How the hell does that make you feel?
Like a hero, 'cause I'm preventing tomorrow's death and the day after that and the day after that. So kiss my ass. In public, on the Johnny Carson show.
Oh, piss ass! Paul!
Yeah.
Behave yourself, Sergeant Paul.
'Cause I'm pissing all over you and there's nothing you can do about it.
I don't believe you're sitting here buying this garbage. Sergeant Paul, you'd better wait outside.
Paul, you heard what he said.
Yeah, I'll wait outside. The stench in here is enough to make you throw up.
Yeah? And I don't honor any assholes like Paul laying cocaine on me and bum rapping me. 2 years, 3 months. 19 years old, I was bum rapped by a cop like Paul because he wanted to get a conviction. The other one I did. I'm all right. Let me go. I'm all right. The next one I did, that was legit. But the city owes me one. You set me up in business.
All right, Mr. Quinn, we get your point. If it makes you feel any better...
Ah, what do you mean, feeling better? I feel great.